Everyone. So, for the most part, I'm going to walk you through the collaborative article. It's actually a chapter that I wrote with Anthony Yarborough and Joe Bartolotta. And I'm basically going to be walking you through instructional design models because some of what I'm going to ask you to do this week entails what we talk about in this chapter. So, to begin, we mostly talk about three design models that are important for you to think about. And number one is the collaborative mapping model. And you're already in that, right? So, what basically this means is that you have an administrator, me, who is collaborating with you to figure out what you want to teach and kind of help you put in your course all the curriculum and think through the best ways to do that, right? So this course is basically set up with the collaborative mapping model where we work together as the instructional designer and you as the instructor to think about your course map and content for your course. So this week you're actually going to be doing your course map and putting it in the journal. So that's how we're going to sort of talk about collaborative mapping model, is just through the map. And then the next one is ADDIE. A lot of what I'm going to ask you in the discussion board is about analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. So this is the one I'm going to be mostly walking you through. So really, it's the industry standard model of instructional design. It has you sort of think through who your students are, and then design your course and evaluate is sort of like the assessment that you would do at the end. Like what worked well, what do you need to change, so on and so forth. So in this little video, I'm going to be talking mostly about ADDIE. Backward course design. So really it is the structuring of the portfolio. So it's taking the outcomes and thinking about your course based on those outcomes. So that's why we have you choose 3 or 4 for every project, is because you need to think about how the outcomes first and then design your curriculum in such a way where students can work toward those outcomes, right? Through everything that you do in that module that works towards 4 outcomes. So it's basically taking the outcomes and working backwards, right, to design your course. So essentially what this chapter is doing is it's talking about the practicum that you're in, which has changed over the last 17 times I've taught it. But really, you're immersed in an online course guided by methods while learning how to structure your own course using similar design approaches. And this is really appropriate as we shift into the quote-unquote online portion that you're now in 532. We've talked about hands-on experiences. We've talked about pedagogical goals. We've talked about access and inclusion. And now we're going to be talking about specifically teaching online. And we have already talked about this constructivist approach to learning, active learning for online student success. So now it's basically you're going to be thinking about the tools that you want to use and the curriculum that you're going to design to really enhance that active learning for students. So I said we were going to talk about ADDIE in this short video, and I think it's probably more relevant than collaborative mapping model because that's from an administrator standpoint, and you're already doing backward course design, right, where you have outcomes to work toward. So let's talk about ADDIE. So first, what you want to think about is the educational and demographic data to help you understand students' learning needs or technological challenges. You're also reading something this week about getting to know students and where they're coming from in terms of technological access, so on and so forth, right? Like, what do you need to know about them before they enter the course? But also, it would behoove you to sort of understand this, that in the state of New Mexico that you're currently going to be teaching in, 26% of residents throughout the state don't have access to broadband internet, and 15% don't have access to a computer. So what you really want to think about is some of those things that we've talked about: low bridge technologies, transcripts of everything that you create, at the very least, like closed captioning. How many times do you want to use video versus like a sound clip or versus text? So, but also think about having something in that technological survey that you're going to do in the discussion board this week is what are you going to do with that information if they don't have access to a computer? How are you going to work with specific students, right? And I also think it's important, I've said this before, not to work from a deficit model where you don't want students to think, oh, I don't have access to a computer, I'm not going to be able to be successful in this class. No, the idea is like, how can you work with them and make them feel comfortable staying in the class? There's other things here that you could potentially read. The first two are from Foundational Practices of Online Writing Instruction, which you have the link to on your syllabus if you wanted to read those. You've already read Dan Anderson's Low Bridge to High Benefits. This next one, State of the Field, Teaching with Digital Tools in the Writing and Communication Classrooms. You can certainly ask me for or do a search for in the library if you'd like to read more. So design is basically the course map. So you want to be thinking about, if you look at this course map, you can see that I've structured it where the outcomes are here. Like this is for the first unit, week 1, 2, and 3. Actually, the unit 1 is weeks 1 through 5, but I just have a screen capture of weeks 1, 2, and 3. And you're going to do the same thing. Basically, here you'll tell me what the assignment is, and then kind of like a breakdown of what they're going to do. And then each week is just something simple, getting to know each other. This is my pedagogical goal. I want them to read and brainstorm. I want to have a portfolio checkpoint. I want reading comprehension. And then you can actually put in the outcomes. So you know that you're doing this backward course design, right? Like here's the outcome. Here's the goal. Here's what I'm going to be doing in my curriculum. A getting started quiz, a discussion board, a quiz on reading, discussion board, right? So it's basically an outline of your course. And this is what you're going to be doing for your journal this week. And there is a sample in your Canvas class under the gallery. So if you want a template to pull from, but really it's just a table. And then ultimately it's important for you to put the points unless you're doing labor grading, but you still need to have some idea of how you're going to structure the class in terms of points. So develop. This is where I said you create your course materials. I recommended Microsoft Word. But some things to think about are, have you thought about how students will respond in discussion boards, including word count and number of times they need to respond to peers? Have you used a variety of multimedia throughout your course to establish student presence? So are you asking them to try to use a variety of multimedia in their discussion boards, right? To whether it's a picture, put in a picture, a word cloud, use a soundbite, something like that. And have you offered low bridge options, not only at the small and major writing assignment level, but at the discussion board post level? So what are some options that you can offer them to create something multimodally, but also use low bridge software to do so? 4, this is where, and it really is ADDIE, like ADDIE. I think it's like steps, right? Because you want to develop everything in Microsoft Word before you take it and implement it, which is simply start creating your own tools, start creating those discussion boards. I highly encourage you to use YouTube videos, podcasts, sound bites, and other media instead of maybe taking the time to create your own. Creating your own is great for teacher presence too, which we've talked about with the community of inquiry. But you can also find a lot of resources and have them look at different things from YouTube and different podcasts. And then evaluate. This should be ongoing, but what I would say is we've talked about the Online Learning Consortium, and we've talked about Quality Matters and reviewing your own courses with those tools. So in reality, though, evaluation should occur throughout the teaching of a course and not just at the end. So use OLC and QM to review your courses for accessibility before you start teaching the class, but also take notes as you teach the course, have a student survey in the middle, and then really think about doing your own evaluation at the end, in addition to the evaluation that you're going to give them. My last bit of advice is to offer extra credit for them to do the evaluation through IDEA, the IDEA kit through UNM, or your own evaluation that's anonymous, maybe through like SurveyMonkey, so that students will actually take the evaluation and you can learn from it and make changes. But also take notes, make changes on what worked well or what didn't work well, and then keep the things that did. So that's it for this video. It probably wasn't all that short, but now let's get into the discussion board and continue on.